In conversation with Dee Knight. Dee Knight is a member of the Advisory Council of the Friends of Socialist China, FOSC. He also serves on the China East Asia Subcommittee of the International Committee of the Democratic Socialists of America, DSA. He is the author of A Realistic Path to Peace from Genocide to Global War and How We Can Stop It. He also wrote My Whirlwind Lives, Navigating Decade of Storm, a political memoir. His new book, Befriending China, People to People Peacemaking, will be released in early 2025. Knight was an editor of Amex-Canada, published by U.S. war resistor exile in Canada from 1968 to 1974, and a founding board member of the National Council of Universal Unconditional Amnesty, serving from 1973 to 1976. Was a publishing consultant for the United Nations Development Programme from 1991 to 1996. He also worked as a publishing consultant for Nicaragua Sandinista newspaper 1996 from New York University. He also worked as a publishing consultant for Nicaragua Sandinista newspaper Barricada from 1987 to 1990. He has a master's degree in public administration, 1996, from New York University, and also studied at Columbia University and the City College of New York, as well as San Francisco State University and York University. And on today's episode of Auto Interview, it's my utmost pleasure, joy, and excitement to have on the show today Dee Knight. Welcome on the show, Dee.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. This is my first African interview, and I'm very excited. I want to congratulate Africans for being a major part of BRICS and Nigeria for becoming a partner just last week.
Wow, thank you so much. This is quite exciting to know, really. I need to say you have such a beautiful and awesome bio. I love reading it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, dear, I need to first say that I found the description page of your book, A Realistic Path to Peace from Genocide to Global War and How We Can Stop It on Amazon to be quite overly compelling. And I would like to ask you, what inspired the making of it? What led you to write a sensitive story as this?
Well, I was really led to write A Realistic Path to Peace by a determination to refute the big lies of the Biden administration and its NATO allies, and to help people find the truth and see a clear path to really stopping wars that could too easily morph into Armageddon.
And amazing to know, really. Please, if you have a copy of the book, I'd like you to show to the camera, just so we see what it looks like. That's a
There it
beautiful
is.
cover you've even got in there. Would you like to talk about the making of the cover? Would you?
I did, yes. I wanted to uh, convey the idea that people everywhere uh, can hold up and save the world. You
Mm.
can see the hands from all continents essentially embracing the globe and holding it in a way that is both unified and full of love and care.
That's amazing too. That's very great. Thank you for sharing. And now, just for the sake of readers who haven't read the book yet, and without giving much information away, could we have a sneak of what you would expect in terms of themes and subject lines, picking up a realistic path to peace?
Sure. Well, uh, it's easy. And by the way, for readers who want to get a very, very quick look, you can go to realpathtopeace.com.
Yeah.
And there you'll find the themes. And if and turning to the contents, you can see that the book is divided into 7 parts. The first, there's a significant preface and introduction that summarizes everything.
Mm.
The first section is on Palestine and the end of apartheid and colonialism. The second part is about the Ukraine conflict, the U.S. proxy war against Russia. Next, I talk about the emerging peace movement and how it can grow. It has been really significantly changed by the genocide in Gaza, but it still needs to grow and grow. The
Mm.
fourth part is called China is Not Our Enemy, and it
Wow.
looks very closely both at the hybrid war the United States is already waging with China and shows that China does not really want a war and is prepared to reach out for peace. And that a comparison of democracy and human rights between China and the United States shows that it's really China that that is really showing a path to democracy and human rights. There's also a chapter that shows uh, how China's interaction with Africa is a major example of what can be. There's a fifth part that really goes deeply into what makes the war machine so monstrous, how war planners wet dream, um, but also how manifest destiny and the addiction to domination has the United States to uh, spread its tentacles, killing uncounted millions of people.
Mm.
I then look at the tradition of anti-war activity. The U.S.-Israeli genocide against the Palestinians did not start in October 2023, as the mainstream media tries to make it seem, but really 75 years earlier, or even much longer ago. And it's
Mm.
doomed to end with the self-destruction of the Zionist project and a world historic defeat for the endless U.S. wars for
Mm.
global domination. I next focus on Ukraine and the US NATO proxy war against Russia, in which the US has set up Ukraine as a battering ram in its long, passionate quest to break up Russia and attempt to gain control of the Eurasian landmass and try to defeat China. I show how the US has spawned and nurtured a revived fascist movement in Ukraine and elsewhere, and
Mm.
falsely labeled it democratic, while smearing as autocratic the leaders of Russia, China, Iran, Syria, Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua, and many countries in Africa.
Mm.
In part four, China is not our enemy, I highlight why the US and the G7 are threatened by China's amazing success, showing how China is helping the global South, the world's majority, to break out of the shackles of neoliberal strangulation. This threatens the domination of the dollar system and offers a path to peaceful development based on common prosperity and a shared future.
Mm.
In part five, why what makes the war machine so monstrous, I explore how the Doctor Strangelove dream of using deadly war to establish and preserve a Pax Americana is a continuation of a centuries-long drive by the US and its European and UK allies to force all the countries of the world to submit to Western domination, causing countless millions of deaths in the process.
Mm.
The section called Looking Back to See Ahead shows how the soldiers and sailors of the empire have seen the light and are refusing in increasing numbers to be used as tools and cannon fodder for the empire's military adventures, which
Wow.
are facing defeat on many fronts. I
Mm.
also present the socialist anti war tradition, which has historically led the massive drive to finally stop the empire's war machine and open the way for peace. The
Wow.
sections focusing on the emerging peace movement and on how to build a united front against fascism and imperialism provide details on the strands and voices of a growing popular force committed to forging a realistic path to peace. I think that gives you the flavor. Needless to say, there's plenty there. The
I
book is about 300 pages, and
Wow. I never wanted you to stop. That was quite amazing and very enticing.
thank you.
Yeah, that was very enticing, quite powerful. For you to have written that trunket of chapters, it shows that you've done a whole lot of work, a whole lot of work. And while you were reading that, I wanted to ask you a question pop up in my head. I wanted to ask you how much research is incorporated in your book? How much history do you have? How many percent history? How many percent of research? How many percent of reality is conveyed in your book? I love your take on that.
Yeah, well, it's years and years of research, not only my own, but that of the many, many researchers and analysts that are cited. The
Mm,
the book includes citations from the leading authorities uh, on the U.S. war machine, such as
mm,
Jeffrey Sachs, uh, Colonel McGregor,
mm,
Wilkinson, Scott Ritter. It also delves into the work of Zbigniew Brzezinski.
mm,
People may know he's the one who basically articulated the uh, core thesis of who dominates Eurasia as well as
mm.
North Africa can dominate the world. It's all there. There's literally dozens of pages of endnotes, uh, and I can tell you that I poured my life into this over a period of years.
Wow. That's quite impressive to know, really. I love your take on that. That's quite amazing. That's quite amazing. And I also wanted to ask you, you also have a political memoir, the name of From Resistor to Revolutionary, a political memoir. I wanted to ask you, what inspired you to write that particular book? If you have a copy of it too, I'd like you to show it to the camera, just so it's what it looks like. Yeah.
This is my political memoir. It was
Wow.
originally titled From Resistor to Revolutionary. It is now titled My Whirlwind Lives Navigating Decades of Storms.
Wow.
My inspiration to write this memoir was to show how my quest to resist and oppose the US war machine, starting with its defeat in Vietnam and proceeding through its endless wars ever since, is leading to new possibilities now, to realizations of hopes for a new future for humanity. It's worth noting it starts with my college days on the campus of San Francisco State
Wow.
University back in the mid 1960s, uh, and tells the story of my fight with the draft board that led me to drop out of university and go on a quest to end that war. That culminated at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago in August of 1968,
Wow.
where I got a first dramatic lesson of what happens if anti-war protesters attempt to confront the police to stop the war. A lot of heads were bashed. From there, I went to Canada, caught a ride from Chicago to Toronto, and really began a life that was uh, in a very real way, a new life. You know, people who leave their country for whatever reason are forced really to change their life, to evaluate what caused them to have to leave, and
Mm,
uh, decide how to continue to whatever quest they started. And that was very true for me. I
mm,
became an active participant and leader in the war resistor exile community. That's when I became part of the Amex-Canada exile publication that ended up leading the campaign for Universal Unconditional Amnesty, the
mm,
goal of which was to establish and win the right to resist unjust U.S. wars,
mm.
which has been a major factor ever since. I
Wow.
was in Canada for 6 years. The book tells about that, and it also tells about when I returned to the States, really as a committed uh, anti-imperialist organizer and campaigner. Uh, I was able to help organize a whole range of things, including the anti-apartheid struggle that followed the anti-Vietnam War movement as a major focus for all young people, especially the African American community. And it was a major victory we
Wow.
can remember That the Reagan government called Nelson Mandela a terrorist and strongly supported the apartheid government in South Africa. We had the job of building a boycott campaign and a BID, uh, uh, boycott and isolate and force the disinvestment from South Africa that helped the African National Congress win.
Mm.
And that, I think, was especially important, we thought, when Mandela walked free from jail and became president, that it was the culmination of 500 years
Mm.
of struggle by the African people. And it was a big education for me. As you can see, I'm pretty much a ordinary run-of-the-mill white American, and I grew up in the far West, very much far removed from the centers of power in the United States. But I came to know that we have a job to do, and I've been trying to do it ever since. During that time, I was able also to visit Portugal during the Carnation Revolution there, which of course happened as a result of the victories of the African liberation movements in Mozambique, Angola, and Guinea-Bissau.
Wow.
And it was also an opportunity to see how that kind of victory can lead to a big change, even a revolution in the former colonial countries. And it helped me see also the role of ordinary soldiers in the colonizing country as change agents. And after that, I was lucky enough to be able to go to Nicaragua and participate directly in the Sandinista revolution. And
Wow.
that's documented in the book. I fell in love with Nicaragua and also was able to expand my consciousness, become fluent in Spanish as well as English, understand what real poverty in the colonized world looks and feels like, and what a real revolution looks and feels like. Those are some of the key elements. There's also, of course, quite a bit about Trump's first term. Actually, the first chapter in My Whirlwind Lives looks at the attempted insurrection in January of 2020, which to me looked like a fake insurrection, more like a public tantrum by
Wow.
uh, by the supporters of a would-be tyrant dictator. And I compare it with the real massive protests that had typified my life,
Mm.
starting really with Martin Luther King's uh, I Have a Dream mobilization in August of 1963, when a quarter of a million people, mainly African Americans from the US South, came to Washington and forced the civil rights legislation and the voting rights legislation
Mm.
that were achieved in the mid 1960s. And of course, I also uh, 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 describe the very large scale anti-war demonstrations and mobilizations of that time, trying really to show that uh, our our mass protests are in many ways of a very different character, that really do have the vocation and the possibility of bringing the change we need.
Mm.
That's a quick summary off the cuff.
That's an amazing one. I need to say this is so amazing. Very lovely, quite great, and very exciting. I love your answers to these questions. And I can go on and on and on and on. I love your answer. It's
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
very educative as well. That's another thing I love to mention. Very educative. Now, I also wanted to ask you, do you think Israel is driving US foreign policy or vice versa? I would like to hear your take on that.
Well, I do think it's vice versa. One commentator has uh, described Israel as America's attack dog in West Asia and the Middle East. And I think that's exactly true. Um, if you look at the current genocidal slaughter in against the Palestinians,
Yeah.
what's crystal clear is that it could not happen if it were not for the American bombs, fighter jets, all of the military equipment, as well as the billions and billions of dollars that come from the United States. And what we saw just recently, this month, was when a U.S. president made it crystal clear in no uncertain terms to the head of Israel that it had to stop, it stopped. And that really says it all.
Yeah.
I think it's important to also say, just today, the news report said that Trump is kind of thinking, I really don't know. Gaza seems like a demolition site. Maybe we should just ask our friends in the leaders of Egypt and Saudi Arabia to help us get the Palestinians out of Gaza. And I think that he has forgotten one thing, which is the Palestinians are people who have already clearly shown that they're not easy to defeat. They fight back. And in the
Yeah.
process, they were the ones who were able to force a ceasefire. And they have been fighting now for my entire lifetime, 75 years. While the Zionists have tried to push them out, they're staying. This is today's anti-apartheid struggle, and it is very, very close related to the struggle against apartheid that won in the 1990s in Africa after 4.5 decades, really, of constant struggle. This is the hallmark, really, of my lifetime and of the present period. The colonized people have risen up and are refusing to go away, and rather what they're doing is forcing their colonizers to recognize that their freedom is non-negotiable.
Wow. Your freedom is non-negotiable. That is something to think about. That is something to ponder on, actually. That's quite amazing. Thank you so much for. I love your answers to these questions, Dee. I love them wholeheartedly. I love them wholeheartedly. Another question just
Thank you.
popped up in my head while you were answering that. I would like to ask you, I would like to hear your take on this. Do you think a war between US and China is inevitable? I think we're talking quite a lot about war and war and war between countries and countries. And I think this is actually a very important question, most especially when we have a new president currently in America. Yeah, I would like to ask you, do you think a war between the US and China is inevitable?
Well, if it were only the United States deciding, it might be inevitable. It's very clear that the US leadership is preparing for war against China. Meanwhile, China is preparing for peace. And the things that China is doing to forge peace are very interesting. It has reached out and made friends with the majority of the peoples of the world. That's the story of the Belt and Road Initiative and of BRICS. Now the Belt and Road Initiative has cooperative projects underway in about 150 countries, including, I think, all or nearly all of the countries in Africa. And in the process, it's very similar, even better, than the way the countries of the world majority refused to go along with the U.S. proxy war against Russia. The United States leadership thought that it could get all the countries in the world to support its side. But these countries said no. And that's very much what's happening in China. I'm bringing out a new book called Befriending China, People to People Peacemaking. I expect it out in this quarter. It's based on a series of recent visits I've made to China that have helped me to see with my own eyes that the Western lies about about China are wrong, and that China definitely is not our enemies.
Wow.
Rather, it has successfully begun to forge a new path to common prosperity and a shared future. It's also worth noting that China has the capacity to defend itself. You know,
Oh.
it's depending on every way of making peace, but
Mm.
it also is able to match the U.S. war machine in every technological field, whether it's hypersonic missiles. It has the largest navy in the world.
Yeah.
It has uh, a people's army that has uh, uh, was able to help the Koreans resist the U.S. onslaught way back in the early 1950s, and it helped the Vietnamese to defeat the U.S. onslaught there. This is not, a armchair army. It's the real thing, and but the really main thing is that the Chinese leadership is mobilizing for peace on every front, both internally and globally. And that makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. That's really amazing. Love your take on that. That's quite pulling. That's a whole lot of works you've got in there. And that is something that we really need to think about and ponder on. Yeah, I love your take on that. I love the fact that you answer them without any form of partiality to one country or the other, which is something I think I really admire heartedly in your responses to this question so far. Yeah, before we call it a day today, I would like you to tell us, apart from the books we've mentioned so far, apart from the ones we've mentioned, the ones we've shown to the camera, and what we've discussed, do you have any other works you've authored or say currently working on? And also, where exactly can interested viewers get a copy of your books?
Well, as I said, my new book, I'm putting the finishing touches on it now. It's called Befriending China, People to People Peacemaking. I've given you a hint already of what it has to, what it focuses on. Um, it really compiles the experiences of my visits. The most recent one, I was invited to participate in a forum, China Insight, Global Insight, together with delegates from countries in Africa, Europe, and the Middle East and Asia. China is opening up to visitors from everywhere, hoping this will help assure peace instead of war. The
Mm.
book includes a report from Xinjiang showing there is no slavery or genocide there, as well as highlighting from China's amazing infrastructure development, especially bridges and rail transport, as well as ports. And it spotlights some very exciting tourist opportunities. So this book is my latest passion. And I suspect that it's one of a series. There is so much to say about and write about in China that it's more than can fit in one volume. And I
Mm.
can tell you that for me, writing is a passion and is a serious effort to help people see what I can see and to forge new possibilities for peace.
Wow, that's very amazing, quite great, quite pulling. And just in case we have some interested viewers who would love to get a copy of what platform are they available on for purchase?
Well, the first and easiest way may be, in the case of A Realistic Path to Peace,
Mm.
to go to my book's website, which is called realpathtopeace.com. There's a button right at the top right of the site where uh, the user can click and get a launch discount. Instead of paying $25, pay $15. And For my memoir, my Whirlwind Lives, you can go to my blog, dknight.blog, and that will provide information.
Mm.
Both of these books are available pretty much anywhere good books are sold. The audiobooks, which can be a very nice way,
Wow.
especially for people who prefer to listen rather than read.
Yeah.
Um, uh, it's possible it's possible to go to amplify.com and look for both of those books. If you buy the book there for $10, either of them, I will send you by email a copy of the ebook free of charge.
Wow.
And I'll see that you've bought the book, and your email will be there. And you'll have the audiobook as soon as you order it. It comes right over the internet.
Mm. Wow, that's quite amazing and quite great. And I left a link in the description part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of the Knight books directly on Amazon and Barnes& and Nobles on his website and also on other platforms. I also left links to his social media pages for possible followings. So thank you so much, Dee, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. I must say this is more than awesome. Quite exciting. Very great. Having this lovely, teachable conversation around the beautiful books about war, about the impeding. So much amazing stuff we've discussed so far today. I really appreciate it. It's very instructive, quite educative, and I love it wholeheartedly. Thank you for giving us a snippet into your works, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much. It has been my pleasure.
Yeah, it's my pleasure as well.